And now, another episode of Yoseph's Corner. And now, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Concord, Massachusetts, it's Henry David Thoreau. Thank you for having me back. But of course, you're a friend of the show. Now, last time you were here, I recall you mentioning you were going to spend some time up in Maine to live in the woods. Tell me about that. Yes, well, I really needed to work on my writing, and I have always been an advocate of simplifying your life as much as possible, getting down to the bare minimum, the bare essentials. So I went out into the woods and just sampled what nature had to offer me. Now, I heard, and correct me if I'm out of line, that where you were living was essentially just Ralph Emerson's backyard. It's still nature. Of course. I mean, I'm not debating that. I'm just asking if the land you lived on was owned by Emerson. Again, just tell me if I'm out of line. Well then, yes, you're out of line. Is that what you wanted to hear? I don't care for you. Did you bring me onto the show for any reason other than to make me uncomfortable? Ah, yes, of course. Look at me forgetting myself. I brought you here to talk about some Pennsylvania local news. I'm not from Pennsylvania. Come on. Just talk to me about one thing. Nobody else would come on the show. Please. Fine. What are we talking about? Thank you. Okay, well, in Pennsylvania, the governor, Tom Corbett, has decided to cut the budget for education by $1.5 billion, which will cut the funding, obviously, for state-owned and funded four-year colleges. And this will probably cause hikes in tuition and will very likely mean a lot fewer students in the affected universities. I just want to hear your thoughts on this matter. Well, in my opinion, all education really does is make a straight-cut ditch out of a free meandering brook. In other words, centralizes and unionizes something that should be more free-flowing and natural, education. But, I mean, I'm sure this is causing a stir in the community. Are the people doing anything to stop this? Well, yes, there have been several rallies and protests on the campuses of the that have been affected by the budget cuts. Well, that's wonderful. That's the best way to go about it, in my opinion. Actually, when I was in the wilderness, I wrote an essay about this topic. Civil disobedience, I called it. You have to keep it peaceful. If a large number of people with a common goal really rally together, there's no way that people can't take notice, and this is especially effective concerning issues with the government. What are your thoughts on the state government having control over what kind of funds the local universities get? I've always stuck to this rule. The government is best which governs least. So, while I'm not the biggest supporter of organized education, I still can't deny that I don't like the fact that the government has such a stranglehold on the fate of our nation's youth. And what do you have to say about the fact that the money being taken from education is going to go toward the state prison system? Well, as you probably read, I spent a night in prison. But I found it to be a place of quiet contemplation, a place to gather my thoughts. I was thrown in jail because I refused to pay taxes to a government I did not support. So maybe if these affected people are feeling the same way that I do, that they don't support the government that is controlling them, then maybe they should do the same. Like I said, enough people moving in the same direction is bound to make a difference. Well, that's just great. I really appreciate you taking time off from your busy schedule of sitting in Emerson's backyard. That's great. That's wonderful of you to do. It was a pleasure. Oh, and Henry, do you have a Facebook or a Twitter page for our lovely viewing audience to follow you on? What? All right, we're going to go to commercial, but after the commercial break, we'll be back with our musical guest, Fergie's mother, Betty. What am I doing with my life? And that was an episode of Yoseph's Corner.